This is mostly a test, that's why we're a little early. See me? Yes. And see the matching pocket square. Alright then. Start streaming together. Got it. Allow. Invite or start. Is this how to do it?
I would just like to point out.
Testing? I know we're a little early. This is mostly for the technical test.
Oh, yes. Hi. I think they can actually hear you. How are you?
I'm well. I can hear you. Someone could go to my stream and check that they can hear you. For example, if you speak.
Yes. Okay. Hi.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello,
My
Clever
little.
Smith chat.
Yes. My little recorder seems to indicate that you are speaking. All right.
Wonderful.
That should work as long as we've got no echo or feedback issues. All right then.
Cool. How are you?
I'm
you got
well.
your video on too.
Yes. Do you want my video for your chat as well, or?
Oh no, it's fine. I can. I think I'm not even gonna bother. Yeah, but you guys, if you please go ahead and check out Cybersmith's stream as well. He is live. We're doing this together. So I am going to share my screen on Discord with you. Because I know we talked about finding a YouTube video to watch. I did find one. It's actually something you and I have talked about before. What are your thoughts on the existence of Atlantis?
Well, it obviously doesn't exist anymore.
Sure.
Okay, watching stream. All right. If this is working correctly, I'm seeing a blonde woman in a blue dress.
Yes, that is correct.
All right, and just confirm Twitch Studio should be seeing that with my watermark overlaid. All
Yes,
right,
I have your stream open. It looks good.
My face isn't bleeding, is it? I think my razors are a little dull. I have to get some more.
I can't tell that. Let me see. No, it's a little. It's you're. I mean, not as far as I can tell. So
I'll move my microphone up if I need to. I'm trying not to obscure the pocket square. Got this for my birthday. Actually, it matches the bow tie.
hell yeah, dude! Your birthday's this weekend, or was it last weekend?
Was the 4th, Star Wars Day.
Nice,
So.
nice. Oh, is it? Hey, happy belated.
Indeed.
Did you do anything fun over the weekend? Did you go see Phantom Menace in theaters?
I didn't. I don't go to the cinema that much. Maybe I should have. Should have checked which cinemas were showing it. But
Sure.
no, I don't go to the cinema a great deal. I go occasionally. But all right, if you can hear me well enough, I can certainly hear you.
Oh. The reason I ask, the reason I want to talk about Atlantis, is because it is this. I think it's kind of in your zone of interest, if you will. Like the kind of things that you tend to talk about are like mythology, philosophy, history, that kind of thing. So what do you?
I'm not
sure
that those should be separated as distinct categories.
Sure.
You could argue that is all one category.
Sure. Sorry, I'm making a little promo image to post it up on Twitter. So, what do you think about? What are your broad thoughts about Atlantis?
Well, as far as I'm aware, the earliest reference we have to it is from Plato. It's going to be. I maybe should have brought my phone for scrolling occasionally. Actually, we still have a few minutes before the official start,
Yeah,
so
go
I may
ahead.
just go grab my phone.
We're gonna be a little we're gonna be informal here, friend. I just want to just sort of hang out, have a chat, watch this video.
Okay, so I forget exactly when he said that, but it was Plato in, was it the 4th century BC? Plato's reference.
Yeah,
to
somewhere
that.
around there. Yeah.
Plato. I know you can't see this, but on my stream they're seeing me performing research. So Plato's dialogues. Okay. Also do a Bing search.
Sure.
Plato's reference Atlantis. Afraid Google keeps, every time Google does an update, it defaults its search to Google.
Right.
You know, Google is increasingly becoming least effective search. So
So
trying to
true.
find an exact time. So when are these dated to? The Socratic dialogues. When did Plato say this? Okay, so I was right, about the 4th century BC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
Of course, it had sunk sometime before then, because he referred
Right.
to it in the past tense. So we are very clearly talking about something that vanished sometime before the 360s BC.
Mm-hmm.
It may have been extremely old. It may have been contemporaneous with Troy. It may have been a factor in the Bronze Age collapse.
Is it something you've thought about, like the implications of lost continents and things like that? Is that something that interests you?
Absolutely. You.
Yeah.
I think it's very arrogant to assume that we are the first iteration of human civilization.
Right.
And increasingly, when we look at the archaeological record, we keep seeing evidence for not just humans, but organized groups of humans further and further back in time than we'd initially thought. The concept
Right.
of the out of Africa hypothesis initially suggested something like 50,000 BC, I think was the idea. But we have records of human construction of walls, for example, in Greek caves that are earlier than that.
Sure.
So humans crossed the Bering Strait some, I think, not quite 20,000 years ago.
I think that is what they say, yeah.
So essentially, we realised that what we had previously thought is now archaeologically disproved.
Right.
And so we have to go back to an older source than the modernist idea of history. We have to go back to the oldest stories humans told of the origin tales for human civilizations. And you realise they suggest these small enclaves of humanity. Hyperborea, Eden, where groups of humans emerged. Now, my theory is these were maybe 30,000 years ago, after some cataclysm.
Okay.
You had these isolated enclaves of humanity, distinct enclaves of humanity. More recently than the out of Africa hypothesis, but prior to the out of Africa hypothesis, but far more recently than the earliest common human ancestor. And it's from these that we get our stories of the origin tales of our civilization. We are recording the earliest moments of this cycle, or this meta cycle, I suppose, because you could say that within this cycle there have been several. There's been the fall of Rome, the fall of the Aztec Empire. Is it Oswald Spengler who talked about the phases of civilization? I do wish you had. Yes, Oswald Spengler. So I do wish you had told me we were going to be discussing this. I might have researched it a little more in a little more detail. But essentially, we have these enclaves of humanity that survived that cataclysm. Possibly these were the less developed aspects of the world. Think of what would happen if we had a global war right now, or some other cataclysm, maybe a super plague. Well, North Sentinel Island would be likely to survive, so it may be that Hyperborea, Eden, these other enclaves of early humanity were the North Sentinel Island. What are you looking up?
I'm looking what
Are you looking up racial supremacist graffiti?
No, that was unrelated. That was unrelated. I just didn't know what North Sentinel Island was.
Well, that's... it's possible that if our civilization died out. The interconnected global civilization that we've made died out. It would be isolated places like this that would then expand and repopulate. What if that's where we get these initial origin tales? The Orientals, they have stories of humans supposedly having been created by dragons. The Semites in the Middle East, they have their story of Eden. We know that the Indo-Aryan, Altaic and Amerindian peoples came from a place in the far north, likely what is now Siberia, called Hyperborea. What if these locations were the more isolated parts of a previous civilizational metacycle? They were the only places that survived whatever cataclysm destroyed it, and therefore the only places containing viable human populations that then expanded and became our ancestors. That seems to me the likely reason.
Yeah, that is a theory that a lot of people, like you brought up Spengler, Ezra Pound, Julius Evola, all have sort of talked about these kinds of things, especially in category. It's especially located in central India, northern Russia, the mid-Atlantic, these like the middle of the Atlantic, like where Atlantis would supposedly be. These different ideas are written about by a lot of these far-right thinkers, and I know you don't necessarily...
I don't know what you mean by far-right. I wouldn't say Oswald Spengler was far-right.
I mean, he's a fascist philosopher. He's got a conception of the organization of the economy that aligns with fascist or right wing.
Does that make it far right? And again, would that even be far right by modern standards? I'd say he would be maybe a little bit more interventionist than
that's true.
Than John Maynard Keynes, maybe. So
yeah, but I mean, Spengler's ideas, talking about like the decline of Western civilization,
which he very much considered to be the next step in a pattern of civilizational decline that had been observed throughout history.
Yes,
I wouldn't say that's far right. I'd say that's a potentially
he's a German
pessimistic
nationalist who called himself a conservative. I think it's fair enough to at least say he's on the right wing.
Yes, but that does not make him far right. This is actually quite a lazy generalization I see quite a few people make. The term far right has been treated as almost synonymous with right wing. I wouldn't say that I'm far. I'd say that I am on the right. For example, I believe that the head of state should be a hereditary position.
Yes.
I believe we should devolve large amounts of legislative power to local aristocrats in a process of subsidiarity and devolution. I believe in minimal government intervention in the economy. I believe in strong enumerated protections for individual civil rights. Does that make me far right? No, I think that makes me right wing and possibly even just moderate in the Anglo-Saxon political tradition.
I think when we look at the political spectrum, I do think you're entirely correct to point out that the difference between right-wing thought is as varied as any other way of thinking and philosophizing about the world. I'm just saying, and where I want to get to with this Atlantis stuff is there is a group of thinkers. I called them far right. If you think that's a lazy generalization, I'll take that criticism.
There's a great number of people who I think you would even consider to be on the left who believe in Atlantis. The New Age movements
I think
spanned the political spectrum, really.
Yes.
Not to get all horseshoe about it, but I think you could argue that both left-wingers and right-wingers were more represented in that movement than moderates or centrists ever really were.
Yes. And I want to just explain a couple things because I know what you're talking about, but my chat is asking some questions.
I
So
can't see
Hyperborea.
your chat. Could you pull if you pull up your chat? I may be able to answer some of their questions.
It's not. There's only a couple people even talking on it right
No,
now.
no,
But the
no,
one
no,
question that
bring it up. Let me see their questions.
I mean,
and
I
maybe
have it
answer.
on. I have it on. I have it on. I have it on Twitch. If you just go to like my Twitch channel, you can probably, if you have another screen or anything.
If you message me that.
Sure, you got it.
You message me your.
Yeah.
Twitch?
So. Yeah, I'm on it.
Okay. No, could you message
somebody
me?
asked
Could you
about-
message me your Twitch URL?
Yeah, I'm doing it right now.
Oh, yep. Are you typing?
Yeah, I'm putting it into Discord.
You type very slowly.
Sorry. So. The one person asked about Hyperborea, and Hyperborea is a lost continent on the.
No, Hyperborea was not a lost continent. Hyperborea
Well-
is is a location in most likely northern Siberia. It's been referenced by multiple different societies. It is the origin point for all modern Altaic people. So that includes the Huns, the Turks. It is also the origin of the Amerindian people. Your audience is mostly Americans, so you might know them as the Red Men. It is not in the political sense, in the racial sense.
Right. Yes.
It is also the origin of the Indo-Aryan peoples. So that would be the higher castes of subcontinental Asia, as well as the ancestors of most modern Europeans, with I believe the exceptions of the Basque people. The Basque people
Yes.
are Europid but not Indo-Aryan.
Yes. So
There's also technically a little bit of a... You could make an argument in the case of Finland, because Finland has a large amount of Asiatic admixture.
yes. So there are various theories of other lost civilizations, lost places.
It's not
lost
so much
continents.
It's not so much a lost civilization. It is the origin point. It was supposedly occupied by giants, which suggests there are two possible explanations for this. Well, actually, there's more than two. So the most likely explanations for this are that they were potentially Homo erectus. Some fossil remains of the Homo erectus suggests that they could have had an average height between 6 and 10 foot tall. It's also possible that this referred to the Nephilim, who are also referenced in early Abrahamic sources.
Yeah.
Now, that is interesting because one possibility is that they are the descendants of intermarriage between humans and angels, which were, according to that theological tradition, a type of entity created by Yahweh or God before he created humans. But they may also have been the result of genetic tampering in humans by some extraterrestrial civilization, or possibly even a very advanced precursor civilization to the modern day world, possibly early humans or an early pre-human civilization, like the Silurians of Doctor Who.
Yes. Lizards living in the center of the earth. That part is fake. But I wonder why.
Well, not necessarily the center of the earth, although there is quite a lot of scholarship on the
in Doctor
hollow
Who, the
Earth.
Silurians live in center of the earth.
They live below the Earth's surface, not necessarily in its center. There's quite a big difference between below the Earth and the center.
But
of
it's
the
like
Earth.
a hollow Earth thing. I mean, it's
No, the Earth.
What do you mean?
Okay, in Doctor Who, the center of the Earth is occupied by the Rachnos. They very clearly established this in Doctor Who.
Okay.
Watch the. Actually, no. I will bring it up for you.
You don't have to prove a Doctor Who lore thing to me.
So, according to this source, center. So you are watching, yes? creation of the Earth. So you see,
Yeah, I can see.
the Earth is not hollow.
Bride. They're such very good. So just.
So
You've arrived.
I'm watching.
So you see the Earth. So see the Earth forming here.
Uh-huh.
You've gone back 4.6.
That's the sun.
What do you mean?
Where's
That's
the
the center of the Earth, isn't it?
No, this is before the Earth formed. That we're seeing it form.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, right. Okay. Yes.
So I came
I do
out of
remember
all
this
this.
episode.
So that's what's at the center of the Earth.
Okay.
The center of the Earth is not hollow.
Yes.
It is that.
Okay.
Also, the moon is an egg, but that won't be relevant for another, I think, about
8 years or so.
Yeah, eight to 10 years now. So, yes.
Okay, so I want to talk about Atlantis specifically. I want to actually watch this video from Philosophy Cat. So Philosophy Cat is a YouTuber. She has 20,000 followers. She mostly talks about the monarchist philosopher Julian Evola, Julius Evola, who is somebody.
I think it's pronounced
you and I-
Evola, but is it
pronounced Evola? Because I've heard it both ways.
He was yes.
Okay.
The thing is, he was German. How would a German person pronounce that?
No, he's Italian. He's Italian.
Oh, he's Italian? It may be Evola
Yeah.
then. It may be Evola.
I hear she says Evola. I don't really know. She is very well read on the subject. But I read Revolt Against the Modern World for a YouTube video I'm going to make eventually. But in Revolt Against the Modern World, a lot of topics are covered. And those sorts of civilizations, Hyperborea, Lemuria, and Atlantis specifically, or he talks about them in detail, and talks about the ways that races of people have developed throughout the world. So very much in line with what you're saying. He was a traditionalist in a sense that I think you are more so than the guys who post Roman statue avatar guys. Like, he believed not in like a return to traditional masculinity in the way that 50 Coca-Cola commercials showed. He believed in a return to traditionalism in a way of like dismantling democracy, making he was a monarchist. He believed in the idea, in the divine right of kings. He believed in the
Yes, I know who Julius Evola, if that's how I was saying it was. I'm familiar with the man.
This is a video specifically from somebody who is super into him, talking about an Atlantis show that was on Netflix, and she is responding to an article about how the Atlantis myth is dangerous, really, and the reason people say it's dangerous.
If you'd been planning this all along, it might have helped to tell me about this, and so I could have maybe watched that documentary or read this article beforehand. But okay.
I mean, I'm not trying to make you look dumb or anything. If you don't want to watch it, you don't have to watch it.
I'm quite happy to watch it. I just say, for the benefit of your audience, it might have helped if either of us had done some research beforehand. We're going in with no real knowledge about this this very specific area of the discourse, which doesn't seem to be the best thing for your audience, as we'll be learning about it at the same time they are.
I think that there is value in the.
If you had this planned out beforehand, it might have helped to give me a heads up, so we would actually be coming into this with some level of knowledge about it. But very well, proceed.
Sure. Let's check out this video, and I just want to sort of discuss the ideas that are presented from somebody who does a lot of talking on the subject.
Hey guys, so by now you've probably heard about Netflix's series Ancient Apocalypse. Maybe you've even watched it. It's produced and presented by this guy Graham Hancock, author of this book and many others, and it's exploring.
I'm familiar with Hancock.
A lost ancient civilization.
Have you read any of his books?
No, not yet.
Like,
some of those
documentaries
are
or
on
anything?
my wish list, but
Sure.
And that may have vanished in a cataclysm. And I actually really recommend this book, by the way. I don't agree with
if you pause for a moment.
Yeah, sure.
I believe one of the things he may have discussed is we have archaeological evidence of items that could seemingly only have been produced by advanced industrial methods. Some of them that we can't even reproduce today. For example, the crystal skulls. Those were produced. Some of them turned out to be forgeries, but some of them weren't. And the ones that clearly weren't forgeries were the ones made out of quartz cut against the grain, cut perpendicular to the grain, which you can't do even with modern technology. You'd shatter it. Those are clearly either the result of some kind of natural process as of yet unobserved, which is, I believe, the Lucasfilm hypothesis, or the result of an industrial society that has capabilities we don't even have today. So that must be some sort of lost science. The other evidence is metal spheres, archaeological evidence of metal spheres. You could maybe use some source other than Google. Google is not a very reliable source. You may have noticed.
I mean, you get. I'm just getting the pictures.
Search engine optimization has made Google very unreliable. I recommend searching Bing, then searching DuckDuckGo, and then searching Google. Yes.
For the purpose of showing what these things look like that you're talking about.
So no, those are cattleballs. I'm talking about perfect metal spheres. So, I'm just going to go to Bing.
Yeah, I bet you'll find it on Bing before I do. But I'm looking for it.
Again, I'm not saying. I saw your chat for a moment. I'm not saying Bing is the only reliable source. I'm saying try to look at a variety of sources and then sort of take the weighted average, if you will.
Either way, I'm going to get back to the video because I want to hear a little bit about what she says
2.8 billion-year-old spheres found in South Africa.
2.8 billion. Yeah, those. I found it. It came up. The Klerksdorp sphere.
So these must have been produced by some sort of industrial process, and yet they predate any known industry.
Yeah. And there's that ancient computer machine that they found too, right?
The Antikythera.
Yes.
Yes, that was vast. That was extremely old, and it was an analog computing device. But some of our earliest computing devices were analog.
Right.
They used Ohm's law very often to calculate. For example, you can use it to calculate logarithms and exponentials quite effectively if you set them up in the right way.
Oh, wow.
You could use them as an early form of calculator for multiplication. And if you use Ohm's law, you can use a variable resistor to essentially multiply input numbers.
Yes. It's essentially like a more complicated mechanism than... Well, it is a more complicated mechanism than one would assume.
And the Antikythera, which again, the Lucasfilm hypothesis is that it was used to predict temporal anomalies. No. What?
That it was made by aliens, isn't it?
No, the Antikythera was made... We know who made the Antikythera. There's no debate. The Antikythera was made in ancient Greece.
Yeah.
We know who made the Antikythera. That's not in dispute. Archimedes made the Antikythera. The question was why he made it. Yes! The question is why he made it. Who the hell have you talked to who said that aliens made the Antikythera mechanism?
I don't know, you said the Lucas hypothesis.
Yes, the Lucasfilm hypothesis.
Yeah. You're citing Indiana Jones as scientific evidence. Don't yell at me.
Yes. Indiana... When have aliens ever been in Indiana Jones?
What? In Crystal Skull?
Those were interdimensional beings. Professor Oxley explicitly states that they are not aliens but interdimensional beings.
I would still call... I mean... What's the functional difference between an...
Well, they very likely come from Earth, just shifted along a dimensional axis. Other than an alien comes from outer space, meaning that you shift along the dimensional axis until you're well outside of Earth's stratosphere.
Yeah.
You shift along a spatial dimensional axis until you're out of the outermost edge of the stratosphere. You've passed, I believe it's 100 kilometers above sea level.
I think there's the
interdimensional beings potentially came from Earth, or an Earth that was along a different dimensional axis. We actually have no evidence that they were capable of space travel.
Yeah, but it's a distinction without a difference, you know.
It's very much a distinction. Imagine shifting along the dimensional axis and ending up in an alternate version of London. You can agree that's different to what Neil Armstrong did when he walked on the moon.
I know that, but like from my perspective, what's the difference between London in another universe and just being on another planet?
Gravity, for one?
Okay. I mean...
Well, we know that gravity is dimensionally transcendental.
Do we know that? I don't know.
Yes, it's pretty well established that...
Physics.
No, that's not quantum physics. That's relativistic physics. The opposite direction from quantum. We know that gravity...
I studied literature, bro, so it's all the same to me.
I'm a software engineer. This is outside of my specific interest as well. You are allowed to study things that aren't your job, you know.
Yeah, but my job is like this, so...
I discuss history and poetry, but I'm a software developer. Yeah, we are allowed to talk about things outside of our normal sphere of professional interest.
But I don't read about any physics. I'm sorry to tell you.
Google how many dimensions does gravity perpetrate through, or better yet, go to DuckDuckGo. Go to DuckDuckGo.
I'll go to DuckDuckGo just for you, and I'll find out how many dimensions gravity penetrates.
I believe the current estimate is 11.
How many dimensions does gravity? I'm sorry to do this to you, but the first article I found says our universe's gravity isn't leaking into other dimensions.
Well, yeah, unfortunately DuckDuckGo isn't perfect. You still occasionally come across woke news sources.
I don't know. That was on sciencealert.com. I don't know anything about them. This is sciencenews.org. Gravity doesn't leak into large hidden dimensions. Observations from neutron stars smash out
again. Search engine optimization means that a lot of the woke news sources move to the top.
So why would you find a woke news source to be unreliable in this regard?
Okay, let's try Bing. Aspects of supergravity. High dimensional supergravity. Here we go. Strange topological field theory. So, as I said, 11 was the most recent prediction. So,
and where did you find this?
The internet. Sending it to you now.
11-dimensional supergravity. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll just look up postwords.
Actually, I'm going to post that in your chat as well.
You've got your Discord DMs open, brother. It's on your stream.
Yeah, my Discord DM with you.
Yeah, as long as you're okay with it.
I'm just going to post this in your chat for the benefit of your chat. They can do their own research.
Beautiful.
They can do their own research.
I mean, this looks like a...
This looks like...
Oh, it's from Cornell. It looks like a peer-reviewed article. I don't know. It's from 2018. Okay. I mean, I'm for sure not going to read this. I'll tell you that right now.
Okay, you don't have to. It's in the chat. Your audience can research it in their own time.
Yeah, for sure they can. Okay, so let's get back to Atlantis. Let's watch this. Let's hear out Philosophic out a little bit more, and hear what she talks about, because her perspective is basically going to be in defense of the idea of Atlantis.
It's just, even though it's a big book, I got through it really quickly because it's just so fun to read. So I recommend that. Some of his other books I've liked a little less, some of them I've liked just as much. He's written a lot. But anyway, so he's got this series on Netflix now. And, the mainstream legacy media, academia are all upset about it. And you might scratch your head and be like, what's the problem? Who cares whether or not people believe in Atlantis? Like, what difference does it make? But they're quite upset about it. And I came across this article in The Guardian, of all places. I'll link it in the description below.
Pause.
Lost City of Atlantis.
For the benefit of your audience, you should know The Guardian is an extremely biased, frankly, it's left-wing to the point of being openly communistic news source.
The Guardian is openly communistic, is what you're asserting.
Yes, some of their positions veer into republicanism. They've openly denounced austerity. They are very, very left-wing.
Openly denounced austerity makes somebody very left-wing.
Yeah, they are. I'm not sure if I would go so far as to call them far left. They are definitely left of centre.
Okay. Well, that she
Yes.
has a criticism for this article, and basically it's that it's not a dangerous myth, right? That Atlantis isn't a dangerous myth, and what The Guardian says, we can kind of look at the article here that she's going to be talking about. For a story that was told 2,300 years ago, the myth of Atlantis has demonstrated remarkable persistence over the millennia. Originally outlined by Plato, the tale of the rise of a great ancient civilization followed by its cataclysmic destruction has since generated myriad interpretations. Many versions have been intriguing and entertaining, but none have been as controversial as the most recent outing in Netflix series Ancient Apocalypse. Presented by the author Graham Hancock, the program argues that a once sophisticated culture was destroyed by floods, triggering a giant comet which crashed on Earth, a disaster that inspired the legend of Atlantis, it is claimed. According to Hancock, survivors of the calamity spread around the world, which was then populated by simple hunter-gatherers. So that's kind of what you were saying.
Yes, already read to the base of that. So yes, that is essentially what, according to Graham Hancock, the archaeological record indicates. It also accounts for Plato's writings. It somewhat accords with certain other accounts of Atlantis. We have to remember, though Plato is the earliest account of Atlantis, it's not the only account of Atlantis. We've had recently a number of films with, I believe they've had, that depicted Atlantis. We had
Disney movie.
Yes, that is a source, quite an old one. That's from the Renaissance period. That was late 90s or early 2000s.
Yeah,
that came out. More recently, we've had films published under Warner Brothers, so it's not just one source.
No, true.
We had some films recently under Warner Brothers, and now Netflix. So there are numerous sources, I believe. Howard. I need to get this to default. Stop defaulting to Google. I need to change this so it defaults to Bing. Howard Books. So we look at Robert E. Howard. So no, not David. God damn it. Yeah.
So I happen to be somebody who does not believe in the myth of Atlantis. I think it is fake. What?
Okay, so Robert E. Howard discussed it quite extensively. So he was a writer in the early 20th century. So there has been quite a lot of scholarly sources, quite a lot of scholarly discourse about Atlantis. It's not just Plato, although Plato is
for sure.
the more recent source messages?
So in Philosophy Cat talking about it here, she mentions it doesn't matter if people believe in Atlantis, and I don't believe in Atlantis. So what is your thought on, like, the notion that Atlantis is not real? Like, do you think that I am foolish for not believing in Atlantis, or do you think that the fact that no concrete evidence of an underwater civilization has ever been produced, do you think that is irrelevant? Do you think that proof will at some point be produced? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
So I don't know why you would suggest Atlantis is a myth. What would Plato's reason to lie about it have been?
Well, the story of Atlantis that Plato tells is an allegory for the fall of a civilization. It is a
That's not an
philosophical
allegory, that's an example.
Well,
for example, if I talk
if
about
it's fake,
types
then
of...
it's an allegory, no?
Not necessarily.
Why not?
Well, you talk about these categories, real and fake. What exactly do you mean by those? Are you suggesting some sort of ontological position? Are you a Randian objectivist?
I am not a Randian objectivist, but I do think there are things that exist and things that do not.
We agree that Atlantis isn't one of those things either way. It's in the past. Does the past exist in some physical sense? Are you proposing Stephen King's... hold on a moment, I've let you speak for a while. Are you proposing, for example, Stephen King's Langolier hypothesis?
No, I am...
So what is the difference between something that existed in the past but doesn't exist anymore and something that never existed at all? In either case, its only influence upon us comes in the form of information, yes?
No. There's also remnants, evidence. So, like, Crystal Pepsi...
Evidence is a type of information.
Right, but evidence is the type of information that proves something. That's what makes it evidence. So, in a criminal trial, the way that you can prove that something happened is through the evidence.
Or through testimony.
There is no evidence of
or through inference.
Okay, but there is no testimony from anybody alive contemporaneous with
well, there's very little testimony of anything that occurred that far back in time.
Right. So assuming there was a continent capable of advanced
Did Plato specifically
technology...
say continent? He simply said that it was a great power, I believe.
Okay, so that is interesting because it is either way. It sinks into the Atlantis or Atlantic. It sinks into the ocean. And
did Plato specify which ocean it was?
No, but it's called Atlantis, so I think a lot of people assume it's in the Atlantic.
A lot of people assume. Is it actually from there? So
I don't think it was ever anything at all. I don't think it came from anywhere. You know, we can see you scrolling on Twitter, right? You're aware that that's on your screen?
I know.
Okay, cool.
Just boosting this up for people.
Understood.
So,
oh my god, you do have a lot of tabs open. Holy shit.
And that's just one browser. This is a different browser. The curse of the autist. The curse of an autist with too little time.
I don't think that the former existence of Atlantis, I don't think that the idea that Atlantis ever existed, first of all, I don't think it ever existed. And second of all, even if it did, I think that human civilization and technological progress has been largely linear. I think that...
Well, that's just straightforwardly untrue. Human technological progress has not been linear. You'd have to account for things like the Dark Ages. There was a fairly major time when industrial when humans basically lost the ability to produce metal in large quantities, cities almost totally vanished. It took about 500 years for after the fall of the Roman Empire for Europe to re-industrialize to a sufficient extent that it could maintain urban populations and manufacture plate armor.
That doesn't mean the technology was gone. That just means it wasn't in Europe.
So
the Dark Ages were a European. The Dark Ages were a European situation.
Irrelevant. You're saying linear.
It's very relevant in the kingdoms of Central Africa, which were flourishing at that time.
That still disproves the notion of technology being a linear process. There could have been technological growth on Mars, and it wouldn't disprove your idea of technology being linear.
I said largely linear over a long enough timeline, meaning that when the printing press was invented, it hadn't existed before. When the processor chip was invented, it hadn't existed before. That we aren't discovering lost ancient technologies.
Okay,
that isn't
here's
happening.
evidence of you being wrong. The electrical cell, we call them batteries, but strictly speaking, a battery is a series of electrical cells. The electrical cell was, I believe, in use in ancient Mesopotamia. So
yes,
the means of
absolutely.
storing electricity was
Yes.
discovered and then lost again.
Yes,
we are losing technology.
battery
Hey, we are losing technology right now. We used to have the ability to send extremely massive planes across the sky at extremely high speeds without them crashing or failing. We are losing civilizational capacity right now. The largest plane ever built was the Concorde, and that was that was not the fastest plane. The fastest plane was the Blackbird, and we built that in the 1960s. And do you know what? We still haven't topped that.
The fastest commercial plane was
The fastest,
Concorde, though.
yes. And you'll note we've gone down since then. We are losing civilizational capacity. We can't
because
even
the Concorde exploded on the runway.
No, it didn't.
I mean, it did. The tire exploded and it sucked up into the engine. That's what happened to the Concorde.
So we lost the capacity to build that. That is lost technology.
No, we didn't lose the capacity. It's
We
just
literally
over the
can't
line.
do it anymore. Have you noticed that
Yeah,
Boeing
it's
has
because
had
of
to
the
resort
law.
to killing people? We've lost the ability to build rigid frame aircraft. We have lost the ability to build effective
What do you
jumbo
mean by
jets.
lost the ability?
We have lost the
We
ability to
still
make
make,
high-speed fighter jets. Have you noticed that our modern planes are supposedly the F-35? The F-35 is substantially slower than the Blackbird that was made in the 1960s. Let's see, 1960s. So that was about 60 years ago. We had faster planes than we do now. And we can't even keep the planes we currently have in the sky. We are losing technological capacity. The modern world that we are in right now is evidence against your theory of continuous linear growth. Stop being such a Whig.
I believe.
Oh, okay. No, I see someone in your chat. Maddie Caddy. It's not all about speed. What is it about then? Comfort? Planes are less comfortable than they used to be.
Yes, but
Is it about safety? Planes are less safe than they used to be. It is explicitly technological.
Those aren't technological failings. They are failings of build quality and craftsmanship.
The point of a fighter jet isn't to be the fastest, you dolt. Yes, it is.
No, it isn't. No, fighter jets don't need to be the fastest.
What else are we going to measure them on then?
The ability to blow stuff up.
The F-35 has less ammunition capacity than...
Yeah, the
even
F-35 is a
modern
boondoggle of the U.S. government because of all the ridiculous contracts that the military
So
makes
you
with private
agree?
contractors.
We are in a period of technological regression.
No, we are not. We're absolutely not.
Well,
I mean, you could
what
just-
would you consider to be evidence of technological... You've made an unfalsifiable hypothesis. What would you consider to be evidence of technological regression?
Regression?
Yes, regression. The opposite of linear growth. I, like Evola, or Evola, like Spengler, believe that civilization in most aspects, including technological growth, is cyclical or perhaps spiral. There will be periods where it goes down. What would you
I don't
consider
agree with that.
What would you, okay, that's because you are blinded by wiggery and woke ideology. What would you consider to be evidence against that? The F-35 is a media farce, but it's still insanely more capable than anything else ever. It can't be both. Can't be both. Okay, do you see why your chat is blinded by ideology? They are too anti-American to say that America is doing something good, but they are also too Whiggish to say that things are getting worse over time. So they've put themselves in this logical impossibility space where the F-35 is simultaneously
bad thing. It's that the F-16 is a more reliable plane than the F-35, but that doesn't make it a more capable plane. Those are two different things.
The pilot can see through the plane. No, it isn't. No, they can't. People say the F-35 has stealth mode. It isn't. It is completely opaque. The pilot cannot see through it. It is an opaque, solid object. This stealth mode it has, it's only invisible to certain types of machinery. It's not invisible to humans.
Yeah, that's how we see in the sky, is with machinery for the most part.
No, we don't.
In warfare, we do.
If you're talking about radar, I work with radar. I work with radar professionally.
Sure.
That's only a very small number of people use that. It's not the most common way of engaging with things.
What is night vision if not a machine interface to see? Like, there are all.
Do most people you know use night vision?
I'm talking about warfare. I'm talking about being able to see a plane.
Okay, let's look at modern warfare. Let's look at Ukraine. Most of the people on the ground there are not using night vision. Let's look at what's happening in the Middle East. Mostly not night vision. You're talking about a couple of expensive toys that largely aren't even being used on most theatres of war. You're talking about things that the vast majority of warfighters aren't actually using.
Okay. Even still.
What do you mean, even still? What would you consider? What would you accept as evidence against technological progress? What would you accept as evidence of technological progression, of regression?
What would I accept as evidence? That's your question, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what I would accept as evidence of technological regression is the cessation, the stopping of technological improvements. Just because some tech is progressing slower,
not progressing slower. It's gone backwards. Aircraft are slower. That is an area of technology that has gotten worse over time. Modern aircraft are slower than they used to.
To make those planes go faster. That doesn't mean the technology still exists. We know how to do it. It's not lost. It is a capitalist.
If we can't do it anymore, it's lost.
Outcome.
What do you mean? If communist countries can't do it either. North Korea isn't producing faster planes either. Communist countries are also failing to build faster planes. Humanity as a whole has lost the ability to do that. Our planes are now slower than they were 60 years ago.
Engineers and stuff who know how to make faster planes. It's just that the companies don't get as much money for them.
So as a civilization, we have lost that We have lost the means to do it. As a civilization, we have lost...
It's in books. People know how to do it. I don't know what you mean. We didn't
What do you mean?
It.
People know how to do it. If we can't do it anymore, whether we theoretically know how or not, doesn't matter.
Why doesn't it matter if we know how to do it? That's
because
all
we
I'm
functionally
saying.
Can't build those planes. You saying, but we could build them if our civilization...
Functionally not being able to and not knowing how to are two different things.
No, it's not. That's a completely academic distinction. You're saying if our civilization were fundamentally different, we could do this. But that's true of any technology. Any technology that is possible within physics is something that we could produce if our civilization was different.
Not if we don't know how to do it, which we do know how to make the Concorde.
Make a Concorde for me. Make one right now. Make me a Concorde.
I'm an internet goofball. I am not an engineer.
So our ability to make it is purely hypothetical. And by the way, you keep saying it's capitalism. Okay, then we should be seeing planes that fast still coming out of North Korea, still coming out of Cuba, still coming out of Venezuela, still coming out of mostly
Vietnam.
Vietnam. Well,
Vietnam.
they're not really capitalists, are they? Which?
But they don't
area-
have the money to do it. Those countries don't have the money to make those things. They don't have the resources to make those things. It's not like, it's like, Indonesia. Indonesia is a capitalist country. Indonesia doesn't have the Concorde either. And the reason I say it's a capitalist thing is because I'm talking about the system of trading and exchanging goods for money.
Google
that
is useless nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. These are just like posters. But here, look, here. They know how to. They got the steel. They got the kinds of steel.
Okay,
You
so
know,
there's areas that
all
voted
the
very
info's
heavily
there.
for Labour. Those areas should still be able to produce.
Wait, say again. Sorry.
There's areas of the country that voted very heavily for Labour. They should be
Right.
able to produce these high-speed planes. There are very left-wing
Should the
parts
people
of the
who
world.
voted Labor should be able to build their own planes?
Yeah. There are, if
Right.
the issue is capitalism, then it should only be affecting capitalists. There are entire countries, entire regions of the world that have nothing to do with capitalism, like Red China, for example. One of
There
the
are
most
global
populous.
markets of trade that exist. I mean, it's not like Cuba
When have there
exists
ever
in a
not been
total
global?
vacuum.
When have there ever? It does. That's literally the point of the U.S. embargo.
Right. The embargo makes them poor, so they can't afford to make the kinds
The
of planes
embargo
that-
doesn't make them poor, it prevents them from trading with capitalist countries. Which, according to you, capitalist economies are the problem. So, isolating something
No,
from a
capitalist systems of incentive are the problem. The systems
And
of
Cuba is
incentive make
isolated
them-
from them. Cuba is isolated from capitalist systems of incentive. I can do this for
So
another
why
12
would
minutes.
Cuba want to make the plane that exploded on the runway?
Because according to you, the only reason they wouldn't is capitalism. And they're immune from that. They've been isolated from capitalism.
I don't know why you're so focused on the speed of air travel. I don't know.
Because it is a
anything about the speed
directly measurable factor that has gone down over the past 60 years. Modern planes are
why has it
slower
gone
than the
down?
planes are.
I don't actually know the answer
because,
to that. Do you?
because of wokeism. Because we as a civilization
Because
are
of wokeism.
regressing. We are losing a technological capacity we used to possess. We now do not possess that technological capacity. Have you noticed that our infrastructure is also decaying? Bridges are falling down. We used to be able to build bridges. The Romans
We
could
know,
build
but
bridges,
nobody
but we've
forgot how to
forgotten
build the
how.
bridges.
We can't
Nobody
do it
forgot
anymore.
how to build
Yes,
the
they did.
bridges, dude.
They did.
They're in the thing. They're in the books. Everybody knows how a Roman bridge was constructed. We can make them. if
Then
we
make
want
me
to.
one.
There's just-
Make me a Roman bridge right now. I am
I don't
looking
have
at
the
your-
money. I don't have the money to make the bridge, bro. That's why
It's
there's no
all-
bridge.
It's almost as though our civilization has declined. We have lost a technological capacity. That is technological regression.
Losing the incentive is not the same as losing the capacity.
It very much is, because as a society, you can't do something if the incentives align against it. Whether you theoretically know how or not is purely academic. If you can't
But
do
if
something,
that's-
you can't do it. The reason why you can't do it is irrelevant.
But by that logic, then, we have forgotten how to shit outside as a society. We don't remember how to take shits outside anymore because...
Who do you
we
mean by
stopped
we? That
doing it.
technology still exists in India.
Exactly, bro.
But there's
Exactly.
nowhere in the world that is making planes faster than they were in the 1960s.
But they
so
know
that is
how to.
That doesn't matter. And also, you
Yes,
wanted
it does. That's
So, okay,
advancement,
something that
that's
we have-
knowledge.
not purely theoretical knowledge is irrelevant.
Why is it irrelevant? Because purely theoretically, Atlantis existed.
Purely theoretically, we know how to build bigger. Okay, so when did we gain the ability to split the atom? When did we split the atom? Whack.
45.
We had the theoretical knowledge to do it well before then. Theoretically,
Sure.
all the knowledge about it existed. They didn't discover new principles of physics in 1945. They just built the damn
They
thing.
did. What are you talking about? They absolutely discovered new principles of physics at the Manhattan Project.
All the physics they were operating under was already developed. That's why they knew an atom bomb was theoretically possible. That's why they were racing towards
They
it.
did not know it was possible. They theorized that it could be. They also thought it might destroy the universe.
So when did they develop the capacity to do it? When they developed the underlying physical knowledge for it? Because that was based on papers written by Einstein years earlier.
Yeah, and Einstein thought it would be impossible. Did you see Oppenheimer?
Well, Einstein was a bit of a pessimist, wasn't he? Point
Yes,
being...
absolutely. It's
So,
a big part of that movie.
and then Heisenberg was also working on it over in Germany. So when did humanity gain the ability to do it? 1945. When did humanity discover that it gained the theoretical knowledge, the knowledge that you say is equivalent? You seem to think that having the knowledge that something is possible is equivalent to being able to do it. I would argue the atom bomb, the fact that you cite that as something that occurred in 1945, is direct evidence against that.
The atom bomb was built based on theories that had already been developed. Those theories were put to the test. The scientific method was done. Hypothesis, testing, observation, conclusion, and what they found was that it is possible.
So
to
the
split an atom and
knowledge
release
existed before
energy.
1945.
And then it progressed, and then the bomb was made, and then it was used for power plants, for bigger bombs. Then nitrogen bombs were
So
invented.
yes, so we agree. The civilizational capacity... You mean hydrogen, not nitrogen.
Yes.
So the civilizational capacity to do it was a different thing than the abstract academic knowledge to do it.
So if we destroyed all of the nuclear weapons on the planet...
That would be a lost technology, by definition. If you can't do it anymore, then it is a technology you have lost. That's what losing something means. It doesn't mean forgetting you were ever capable.
That way, man. I just don't see it that way.
But it is definitionally true. Look at your own country. You can't build railways anymore. California, one of the richest states in your nation, cannot build railways anymore. That's a technology that mankind discovered back in the 1800s, and you are losing it. Humanity is losing the ability to build railways.
But if California spent more money on railroads...
What do you mean? No, wrong! Fake news! Outright untrue. It spent $9 billion to build a tiny stretch of railway. It is already spending more money on railways than was spent in the entirety of the 1800s. It is spending a ludicrous amount of money.
1800s? We're not talking about the 1800s.
Why not? They could build railways back then.
Because if California's state budget put more money into railroads...
No, outright untrue. They just spent billions in it. How much more money do you want? Adjust for inflation.
Billions more, bro. Billions
Why?
more. Billions.
You can't just throw money at the problem.
We are talking about a state with an economy that is the 5th largest in the world.
You can't just throw money at problems, you goddamn leftist.
You can.
That is not how solving problems works. Fucking Google.
I'm still going to use Google.
Then you are lost.
Look. They spend all this money on like other things, state funds. Okay, so what do the state funds include? Obviously education, obviously police, obviously
11 billion. 11 billion in 9 years. 11 billion in 9 years for 1,600 feet of railway.
11 billion in 9 years is nothing. This is their 2008
what do you mean?
budget.
That's nothing.
That's
not nothing.
They spent 35 billion on health and human services, 43 billion on K through 12 education, 14 billion on higher education, 4.2 billion on labor and workforce development. This 9 billion. It's a state budget. This California state economy is the 5th largest in the world, bigger than England's. So
irrelevant. Why can't they? Because the percentage of
England has railroads.
Not anymore. It doesn't. They're largely collapsing. Look at the 18.
Yeah, because Thatcher and her austerity.
So we are losing the capacity to build railways. We literally can't build them even though we're spending more money on them than we used to.
The amount of money we spend is relative, right?
No! Why
Just
should it
because
be? Why should it cost
should it
more
be?
money to do the same thing now unless we have lost civilizational capacity?
What is this notion of civilizational capacity?
It
What
is
this idea?
It means a thing that we can do. So, actually, real GDP... No, I want to... Okay. British real GDP per capita was... Is this in pounds? I assume this is in pounds. In, say, 1850 was about £100. Is this in pounds? I am assuming this is in pounds. So this is what. Why are these figures so damn hard to attain? GDP per capita.
The GDP of a random year in the 1800s of England, I think would be very difficult to determine.
In constant 2013 GDP per capita is okay. It's putting that at about 3,000. So population of Britain in 1850. Britain, 27 million. So just convert that. 27.4 and then 1, 2, 4, 5 times that by 3,000. That gets us.
Hello, Tracer. Thank you for the follow.
82. Now, how many zeros in a billion? It's
9.
9. Okay, here we go. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Well, 8 zeros. 8 zeros.
8. Okay, so
9
that gets
figures.
us to 822 billion as the GDP, conservatively, of Britain in
United Kingdom.
of the United
okay.
Kingdom, of Britain in 1850. That is the maximum amount of money that could theoretically have been spent. Now, of course, the government budget is going to be much, much lower than that.
Yeah, sure. But
How many feet of railway do you think there were in Britain in 1850?
more than anywhere else in the world.
Significantly more than 1860. So even direct monetary comparison, California spent $11 billion making 1,600 feet over 9 years. So these are comparable numbers in terms of what the, say, budget of the entire British government would have been back then. But there you go, $822 billion adjusted. And that's pounds, isn't it? So pounds to dollars now. Pounds to dollars nowadays. I hate Google. GBP to dollars is 1.25. Okay, 1.25 times 822. So that's about 1,000. Okay. Divide that by 11. Although, of course, this is over 9 years. So 11. So 93. So let's say 1/93rd of the entire British economy. I doubt 1/93rd of the entire British economy was going towards railways, and they built a hell of a lot more back then in the 1800s. In 1850 specifically, they built significantly more than 1,600 feet of railway. Do you agree with that? So that is a loss of civilizational capacity.
That part I'm not going to agree with you. I've already said.
For the same amount of money, they are able to build less railway and it takes longer.
Right, because there's no political will to do so.
That's part of civilizational capacity. That is the primary thing Julius Evola talks about. What do you think he's talking about?
I think Evola's an idiot.
But this is evidence that he's correct. If your civilization can't do something, now we've gone over agreed time. You know, we agreed I was going to stop at this point.
Yeah, it's totally up to you. I'm going to.
But that is evidence of lost civilizational capacity. California today is less able to build infrastructure than Britain was in 1850.
Because they are
Because of
funneling money into
wokeism.
places.
They are,
Because they are funneling money into places. So this is the U.S. federal budget
They are
for 2023.
but they are spending more money in absolute numbers, even when you adjust for inflation, on railway than Britain was.
Okay, but as you can see here,
The percentage... okay, firstly, that is out because it's not counting all of the entitlement money. So this is outright...
Yes, it
because
is.
that's
Yes, it is.
discretionary. No, this is discretionary.
not in America, it's not.
It says discretionary.
under-
It says discretionary.
Yeah.
The word
no,
discretionary is right there, which means it's not counting entitlements.
So our health, which is counted as an entitlement, so is education, so is
Okay,
unemployment
you are
and
lying
labor.
now. You are lying.
I'm showing you the
UK
picture. It says unemployment and labor.
That's a lie. That is
$50
fake news. Discretionary spending is a fake news lie invented by woke communists with pronouns.
Okay. This is the federal discretionary budget.
Discretionary is a
Right.
lie. Discretionary and non-discretionary.
Okay.
Fiscal.
Are you going to find a different U.S. federal budget? Because this is how the
I'm
budget
gonna-
breaks down every year.
Only if you just count discretionary.
Well, what
That's just the
other
money that
funds
they.
What other funds is the U.S. federal government
Federal
spending?
spending. Mandatory, which is non-discretionary, is the vast majority of it.
Okay.
And
where
most
does
of
the where
and
does
most of
non-discretionary
them and
funding
most
go?
of the mandatory. Well, remember, discretionary 26%. This is for 2022. Mandatory 66%. And mandatory budget is mostly wokeism.
Mostly wokeism.
Non-defense discretionary. So this is discretionary spending. So breakdown of non-discretionary spending. USA 2023. Non-discretionary. Non-discretionary. I hate Google.
I don't know how to find the non-discretionary spending.
Exactly.
I still don't see how.
Do you see why the search engines that have been corrupted by Marxist cultural manipulation are so bad? Because they are hiding
It's
the
not
non-discretionary.
Marxism. It's not Marxism.
It
It's not
literally,
Marxism.
it literally is. Open your eyes. God
it
damn
really is
you.
not.
Open your eyes.
literally
Look.
Okay.
Health and
Are
social
you
services
suggesting-
is the vast majority by a huge proportion.
And what's the number, bro? What's the number?
State
Is it smaller than $1.14 trillion?
Yes. Well, of course, because it's a proportion.
I would imagine that it is, because $1.14 trillion of the tax budget, of the discretionary budget of the United States.
The non-discretionary
military.
portion is bigger than the discretionary portion.
What's the dollar amount? Because this is what, like almost $2 trillion here.
How many dollars did the USA spend on as in 2023? 1.3 trillion.
Right. So it's less than the discretionary budget.
No, because that's just the welfare program. That's just part of its entitlement spending. That's its projected amount. U.S. government social security.
You're not looking like that's not true. We don't spend more on entitlements than we do on the military. That's not
You
true.
literally do. You're only looking at discretionary amounts. But we've just shown that discretionary amounts are a minority of the amount the government spends.
Right, but non-discretionary funds aren't all going to welfare. That's ridiculous.
So find a breakdown of non-discretionary funds. USA federal mandatory spending. Mandatory spending, funding for entitlement programs, spending to state and local governments. It's a tiny. It's a much larger portion than discretionary funding. And all of the military is coming out of that discretionary funding. Mandatory. And there's also debt. So there's entitlement and debt. So the bulk of mandatory spending is for entitlement programs.
Debt. Do you think we're spending more on the national debt or on welfare? Be serious.
You're not Does it matter where exactly you're spending it? The point is you're spending more.
It does matter how much money you spend because that matters what gets made. It is not.
You're spending more money on trains than the entire UK government was spending on trains in 1850 as an absolute value.
A country that's like 50 times the size of the UK economy.
And yet you've only made 1,600 feet of railway for $9 billion.
Because this country is controlled by oligarchs who pocket that money rather than being taxed in order to help people.
That is a loss of civilizational capacity, goddammit!
And we should kill those billionaires and put the society back on track, shouldn't we?
What do you mean back on track? Back on track to what? 1850s Britain? Do you think 1850s Britain had less greedy rich people? This is the era that Dickens was
sure it did.
This was the era of workhouses. This is the era Dickens was complaining about.
I don't think it's worse now.
By what metric?
Income inequality is worse now than it's ever been.
Income inequality isn't inherently a bad thing.
I don't agree with you.
That could potentially just mean that the richest people in your society have become vastly more productive.
It doesn't, though. It could mean that. It has never meant that.
Elon Musk, in and of himself, comprises the majority of your space program. He is literally...
Elon Musk can't fucking read.
Elon Musk is the only reason your country has a space program. Mandatory spending. Okay, here we have mandatory spending 2016. Major healthcare 29%. Social security 38%.
Dude. You are not going to tell me that Elon Musk did the moon landing and then just want to move on, dude.
I didn't say he did the moon landing. I'm saying he's the only reason you have...
the only reason my country has a space program.
Right now, yes. Right now, it is the only reason you still have a space program.
He is funded by NASA. He gets
NASA doesn't exist anymore. It's been absorbed by wokeism.
It does exist.
Wokeism hollowed out its shell and wore it like a hermit crab. Agriculture and food,
wokeism some secret word for Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan? Is that what you mean when you say wokeism? You're talking about the policies of Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan?
Look at this. Mandatory spending. I'm not letting you explore this point. Mandatory spending. The vast majority of this is social services.
And how much money is it? What is the dollar amount?
Dollar amount for 2016 US government mandatory
non-discretionary, which is still less than the discretionary.
No, it isn't. Mandatory spending by the federal government totaled 2.4 trillion in 2016.
And
US government discretionary spending 2016.
And a huge amount of our non-discretionary spending is going...
Yeah, no, your non-discretionary spending isn't going to the military. Your discretionary spending is, but your discretionary spending is smaller. Discretionary spending by the federal government, 1.2 trillion in 2016. Mandatory spending, 2.4 trillion. You literally spent twice as much money on mandatory spending in 2016 than you did on discretionary spending, and only part of your discretionary spending went to the military. The military is not eating the federal government. Wokeism, pronouns, cultural Marxism, that is what is eating the federal budget of your country.
How many people in the US federal government are like blue-haired pronoun libs? Like,
spiritually, all of them.
And how many of them are paid by defense contractors?
If they're currently working for the federal government, none. You have laws about that.
No, we fucking don't.
Some of them might plan to work for defense contractors later, but that's...
No, they get paid, dude. They get paid by those companies.
No, they get campaign donations, which is a different thing, and also something you wouldn't have to worry about under monarchy.
You're a sucker. You're a sucker.
Hey, if you don't like campaign donations, you know what you could do? Have a monarchy. No campaign donations in a monarchy.
Or kill all the billionaires, which was my option.
That wouldn't actually solve your problem.
You don't know that. You don't know what my problem is.
If your problem is campaign donations, that would not solve your problem. The vast campaign donations are capped at amounts well less than $1 billion.
Not the super PACs, they're not.
Super PACs only go to the major parties, though.
No, they don't.
They do. You don't have super...
No, only the spending goes to the parties, but it comes from PACs who direct it. It's an extremely corrupt system, and it is the reason that we are losing the as you say, capacity. What I would say is political will to help people in this country who need it, and in the world, not just this country.
What do you mean you're losing the will? You're spending more money on them than you're spending on anything else. Again, look at discretionary spending amounts and then compare them to mandatory spending. In 2016, you spent twice as much money on mandatory spending than you did on discretionary spending.
That's not true. You are looking at this incorrectly. You are wrong about this. The U.S. is not spending more on welfare and Medicare.
1.6 trillion for Social Security and Medicare in 2016. U.S. government military spending 2016. And I'm using your woke source, Google.
But that money isn't going
50.9 2016
that
budget.
money doesn't just like get deposited in people's banks. It's going to hospitals and it's going to fucking health insurance companies.
And whose idea was that? Oh yeah, Obama.
The capitalists. Thank you.
Obama's a socialist.
Money off of it.
He literally has the word Hussein in his name. He's a socialist.
Okay, 5 things. 1. Being named Hussein does not make you like Saddam Hussein. Number 2, Saddam Hussein was a Ba'athist.
That's a type of socialist. Ba'athism is a type of socialism. It
is not.
Ba'athist social. Ba'ath Socialist Party.
Any racialized. It's a racial.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you? Oh. Racialized. Are you saying that Obama never made comments about race? Are you seriously, Mr. Whack Nicholson, making the claim that Barack Hussein Obama did not raise the topic of race in his discourse? Is that your assertion, Mr. Nicholson?
I think Obama had every reason to bring up race.
That's different from him not bringing it up.
I didn't say he didn't bring it up.
If your argument is that any party that brings up race is not a socialist party...
Nope. My argument is any...
So you agree he was a Ba'athist? You agree that Barack Hussein Obama was a Ba'athist, which is a type of socialist?
No, and you haven't proven anything. You're just yelling at me.
Because you're denying reality. You still somehow think that military spending is bigger than Social Security and Medicaid spending, which it straight up isn't. You are ignoring non-discretionary spending. You've ignored mandatory spending.
Because what you're doing is misleading.
How is it misleading? That money is taxpayer money that's being spent. It's not misleading. It's misleading to only include discretionary spending. That's what's misleading. And it's what the cultural Marxists always do. Whenever they make this claim that, all our money is being spent on the military, they will just look at discretionary spending.
Misleading because you make it sound as though you call it, first of all, you use the term entitlements, which is misleading. Entitlements is not a technical term.
They are fueled by the woke leftoid sense of entitlement.
Woke is also not a technical term. Woke is also not a technical term.
But you guys change the terminology all the time. First it was Jacobinism, then it was Marxist-Leninism, and it was Whiggery, and you keep changing the terminology. Wokeism. Whatever.
I was not around for the Whigs.
When I was younger, it was SJWism. Whatever you call it, it's the same thing. It's the same thing that Robespierre did. It's the same thing Stalin did. The same thing Lenin did. It's the same ideology. Call it what you will.
That's enormously stupid. I'm sorry, what you just said is extremely stupid. Because the entire idea that Jacobinism has anything to do with Marxist-Leninism is a joke.
It's the
It is
same ideology.
absolutely- The idea that Lenin and Stalin have the same ideology is a joke. That is absurd. That is like patently ridiculous. You can't compare these
Okay,
things.
Lenin shot the Romanovs and Robespierre decapitated.
You don't like doesn't mean that they're all the same thing.
Yes, it does. That's literally how
I
thinking
listened to
works.
you when you wanted to make a distinction between one Nazi and another, between Spangler and Evola. I think both those guys are assholes, racists, and dumbasses. You want to make a distinction between them, and I let you do it. But if you're going to say that Stalin and Lenin are the same, you need to read a fucking book.
What do you
And I
mean?
know for a fact you haven't.
Stalin, you don't think they were the same? They were part of the same political party. They knew each other.
And then what happened?
Lenin died and Stalin inherited his position.
And then what happened?
He continued Lenin's policies.
No, he did not.
Yes, he did. What Lenin did to the Romanovs was fundamentally the same thing that Stalin did to Solzhenitsyn.
Okay, what about the millions of people that died in Stalin's purges? Lenin didn't have purges.
Oh, really? What about the Kronstadt rebellion? What about the Romanovs? Remember when he gunned down, when he mercilessly
fuck the
killed...
Romanovs. They got what they deserved, all of them.
What, the little boy with haemophilia? He deserved to be
Yes.
shot. You are disgusting.
Yes.
You have no soul.
What was he going to turn into? What did his father do?
His father was based. His father funded art programs in Russia. His father promoted literature and music.
Tsar Nicholas Beer Riot. That's what
Oh,
it's
come
called.
on.
The Kondinka tragedy.
Look up the Kronstadt rebellion while you're at it.
I think when bad things happen to bad people, it's fine. I don't think anybody should ever wear a crown or sit on a throne. And I think
So
anybody
you,
that
okay
does
then,
should be
you are a
killed.
Jacobin. You are a Jacobin. You fundamentally believe what the Jacobins believed.
I didn't
So
say
don't-
I'm not a Jacobin. I just said they're not the same.
So, well, you fundamentally believe the exact same things for the same reason. Don't tell me there's not ideological continuity between Robespierre, Lenin, and Stalin.
Ideological continuity is not the same as them being the same. I let you have a distinction between all the Nazis that you like, but you don't actually read because you don't read anything. But you want to say that they're all the same.
You
I
don't
didn't
need
say
to read
Spengler and
things.
Evola
You
are the
don't
same.
need to read things when you have an active imagination. You can fill in the gaps.
That's stupid.
You have a prosaic soul. There is no poetry in your heart.
There's no poetry in my heart.
You admit it. Anyway, see.
No, I...
We've agreed that we're out of time, so we may stream perhaps some other time, but I think that's enough for now. Really, fix your soul if you think it's okay to celebrate the death of a young boy with haemophilia. You should be disgusted. You should be ashamed. Owl. Now, of course, I suppose Anastasia did get away, but it's not because Lenin spared her, it's because she went to Galarian. So, yeah, depraved individual. Interesting to talk to, but depraved individual. Sorry we didn't get to finish his video, but we're out of time. I have work tomorrow and I need to go eat. I'm going to make myself a nice homemade chicken burger. Got some chicken mince that I've defrosted. We're going to use some crushed cornflakes as breadcrumbs. Maybe a bit of seasoning on that. Make myself a nice chicken burger and some lettuce. Good night. Oh, chat. Okay. Oh, I'm seeing people in my chat. Doctor, so listeners, what do you think about Jacob? Plausible. There could have been genetic engineering back then. I'm not quite sure how we would prove it. You'd need to find some kind of evidence in the genes that indicated artificiality, and I'm not sure how you would confirm that. Okay, so Tarsa 3, you have your... So, that's answering Tarsa 3. So, you need a section of the genes where you didn't find any ancient retroviruses. I think that would be an indication of artificiality. Most of our genetic code is actually not activated. It's just the remains of old retroviruses. If you found a large section of the human genome which didn't have any of that looked like it had been artificially made a comparatively short period of time ago, and it was only in Europid DNA, that would be indicative of Jakob. And I don't think there is that evidence. But anyway, that is us. Chicken burger beckons.